Welcome to today's edition of The View from the Top. I'm your host, Brian Friedman from Benevo, and we've got a fabulous show for you today. So if you're out there, you know how it works. We get people every week tuning into this show. If you're out there, let us know. Please join the conversation. We've got a really interactive show coming up, but do write in the comments box. That's the only way that we know that you're out there, you're there. So tell us, give us a shout out, say who you are, say the company, say where in the world you are. And as we go through the show, obviously we've got our normal guests. We've got Julia Onslow-Cole talking about immigration. We've got Michelle Durkin with all the research we're doing. And we're delighted that we've got our very own Expat CEO, Marco Valsecchi. And as you've got questions, please do feed those questions through. We're going to have a lot of fun with this today. So it's going to be a great old session that we've got. As I said, it's a fabulous session that we've got lined up. And our special guest today is Marco Valsecchi. Now, Marco is the CEO of Adecco. That's Adecco in Bangalore. So we're absolutely delighted that we've got Marco with us. And I'll say more about Marco in a moment. But before I do, and I can see numbers are coming in, people starting to sign in. It's great to have you all here. Is that let me just tell you a little bit about what we've got coming up for you this week, next week, with the various Benevo things that we're doing. The first thing is, I'm delighted to say that we are doing a demo of the Benevo platform straight after today's show. So we're going to finish on the hour, and sort of 15 minutes after the hour, we will do a demo for you. I looked at a survey on LinkedIn today, and it was produced by my good friends at Global Mobility Executive and Alex Felstead. It's a great survey, and they're a great company. And it was a survey on technology, and one thing caught my eye. They said that in the survey, 43% of people interviewed said that the main barrier to introducing technology was cost. And I looked at that. In fact, I put a comment on LinkedIn. I said, what? I mean, the platform that we offer at Benevo has got zero implementation cost, zero administration cost, zero personalization cost. So cost shouldn't be a barrier. So if you've not seen the Benevo platform, do have a look, because you might find a solution that introduces technology into your organization for global mobility with zero upfront cost. Anyway, whilst I'm talking about technology, I also want to say that we run a series called Benevo Bites, which is a technology session. And what we're going to be doing tomorrow, Thursday, is we're going to talk about how you can bring fintech into global mobility. Now, we think this is massively exciting, the merger of financial technology into global mobility. That's a huge area, and we're going to get into a debate about all the sorts of things that can be done, and show you some things that are already able to be done, other things that we think are coming down the turnpike. And we'd love you to join us tomorrow, especially anybody who's interested in either technology or finance, because we believe this is the next big area for global mobility. So, as I said, that's a date for your diary. That's tomorrow. We've also got next week, we've got The View from the Top is back. And next week, I'm really delighted to say we've got Alex Rueda from Pearson and Molly McGregor from Publicis. Now, Pearson and Publicis are in the same sector. Well, one's publishing and media, the other is advertising. They're both media and creative in terms of the line of business, but the programs are very different. So we're going to be discussing their programs, how things go on, how they work with internally, how they work with vendors. We're going to get a whole feel for how two major programs work together. It's going to be a fascinating show. I would, before I bring the guest on, I would like to just ask a small favor of everybody, and that's this. Benevo is providing this service, this view from the top, and I must admit, I love doing it. I'm delighted that so many people love the show. Small favor, when we post something about the show, it'd be really great if some of you could maybe just share it a bit on LinkedIn, because we want to get as many people as possible. We often get about, 200 people or so on the show, and that's great. But I've got this dream of getting 500 people on the show. So if anybody could help me by sort of pushing the remarks out there and letting people know, we'd really appreciate a share or a like, or hit those buttons on LinkedIn now. Anyway, let me just bring our guests on to say hi. First of all, I'll bring in our regulars. Let me bring in Michelle. Hey, Michelle, how are you doing?
Hey, Brian, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm really good. And have we had some hellos from people?
Yes, we sure have.
Through, yeah.
We sure have. They are pouring in, as usual, from all over the world. Hi, Sylvia. We've got folks from, across the U.S., a lot of folks from India today to come see Marco. So they're coming, they're pouring in. And for those who are just joining, please let us know you're out there.
Brilliant. Okay. And then we've got Julia Onslow-Cole. How are you doing, Julia? Good to see you again.
Fine. Yes, really well. Thank you.
And what are you going to talk to us about today?
Our worldwide global trends report.
Okay, well, we'll get that on, but let's just quickly bring in Marco. What I should say, actually, before I do, a big shout out to Bindu Menon from Relo, India. Bindu actually suggested the idea of getting an expat CEO on, a senior level expat, and in fact recommended Marco as somebody. So many thanks to you, Bindu. And I would say to everybody else out there, if you've got ideas for shows or guests that you would like to have on shows, send us a message, let us know, either put it in the comments box or send me a message on LinkedIn, and we'll see whether we can get the people on that you would like. But anyway, without further ado, let me bring Marco. Marco, welcome to the View from the Top. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, and thanks for inviting me. And good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Especially good evening also to all the Indian colleagues and friends.
Okay, so Marco, you are in a way the ultimate global nomad. I mean, you're Italian by birth.
Yeah.
You've worked in various countries. You're CEO of a company in India, and at the moment, where are you?
At the moment, I'm in the Netherlands.
in the Netherlands. So we didn't want to make it easy. So okay, so we've got an Italian who's the CEO of a company in India, currently working in the Netherlands. Okay,
yes.
We're going to get into all that, and I would say to everybody out there in LinkedIn world, all our people listening, I see we've already got over 150 people watching in. If you've got questions, you want to hear about things from the expat's perspective, the other end of the telescope, then as we go through, do ask Marco all the questions that you might want to ask. We'll get his perspective also on some of the issues that we've been discussing, things like lump sum and family support and employee welcome, all these things we've been discussing over the last few weeks. We're going to discuss those with Marco, but not yet, because first of all, we're going to go back and we're going to do our normal immigration update. So I'm going to move Marco and Michelle backstage. And Julia, perhaps you can just start talking us about global immigration 10. So let me just move Michelle and Marco backstage. So Julia, let's talk immigration.
Thanks, Brian. Yes, so I wanted to just talk for about 6 minutes about the Worldwide Trends report that Fragment have just issued. And I just wanted to say a big shout out and thank you to Scott Leib, Sonia Cole and Nancy Morowitz and their team for publishing this report. And it's quite funny because as we go through the trends, and I've just picked out six big trends, you can already see how we've talked about all of these issues a lot over the last 19 weeks. So the first major trend is the introduction of immigration policies to really protect resident labour. And what we've seen in COVID-19 is that the containment measures for COVID have really, caused this global recession, unprecedented unemployment rates. So the OECD have issued a recent forecast that by the end of this year in OECD countries, there will be about 10% unemployment. And normally it's about 3% on average. I think last year it was 5%. but this is a huge increase in unemployment. And if you just pick out a couple of countries, as at May, Colombia has 20% unemployment, the US 11%. And there's another recent report in the last 10 days that suggests 60% of restaurants in the US won't reopen. So against all of that background,
60%.
Yeah.
60% of restaurants.
So against this background, what we're seeing is really protectionist policies. And when we talked about the presidential proclamation, particularly the one for non-immigrant visas and H-1Bs, you'll remember that I read out the prologue to that proclamation, which said it's a means to protect US workers and stimulate the economy to ensure prioritization of US workers. And then elsewhere in the world, we've seen in the Middle East that, for example, when the lockdown was lifted, the priority to go back into the office was given to local workers, not foreign workers. And in Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, and UAE, we've seen these quotas for foreign workers really be restricted so that they can protect resident labor and also the healthcare system. And, you know, we've also talked about the Singapore elections, how it was a big issue in the Singapore recent general elections. And although 60,000 foreign workers lost their jobs in Singapore, 100,000 local workers did. And we've talked last week, in fact, about, you know, the dangers of compliance and going on the watch list. So I think that's one point. The second is this shift to remote working. And another interesting fact is that 2 out of 5 workers in OECD countries since April have been working from home. And what we've seen is that governments around the world have given some immigration concessions. So we've seen them, for example, say, oh, you know, as you've got remote workers, you can't do face-to-face checks. And I wanted to insert a top tip here, which is in America, we know that the I-9 concession is continuing, but the strong advice is to do physical checks as soon as possible, because we think that when that concession ends, you're going to have about 3 days to do those physical checks, and you'll have to do thousands potentially. So, you know, you should do that. And we talked about countries like Estonia with this novel visa where you can, you know, get immigration permission to live in Estonia. But we've also talked a lot about the fact that there's still lots of immigration issues about working from home, as well as tax issues and data privacy issues. The third thing is this additional burden of health restrictions. A recent survey of 150 countries showed that 12% have COVID-19 tests either on arrival or before you leave. And in fact, Oman in the last couple of days have just introduced a requirement for foreign nationals that they're going to have to wear a tracking bracelet when they arrive in Oman, and you have to pay $15 for it. We talked before about the strictness of these quarantine rules, how the person in Singapore was arrested for taking a selfie in a restaurant, having a favorite meal on his way home, and he is now in prison because he breached the stay-at-home notices. And we talked very early on, I think in the first 1 or 2 weeks, about joggers in China who went out without masks and were arrested. So that's the third issue. The fourth is the acceleration of online systems. And we've seen that in countries like Kenya, the UAE, Latvia, Chile, Bahrain, really good push on in terms of technology, but really highlighting those countries like the US, which are very paper-based, and they're really lagging behind. And the fifth point is about travel bubbles. And I think actually when I was writing this up, I was thinking you could have a really good article saying, have travel bubbles burst? And I actually think the answer is yes, because, you know, last week we talked about how strict the requirements are, how opaque the requirements are. And actually they seem like such a jolly good idea at the time, but is anyone really going to use them?
Something we've never even heard of in 2019, and by 2020, by the end of 2020, it might be passé already.
Yeah, exactly. So
fashion in immigration.
Yeah, exactly. So the sixth is, you know, increased compliance. And we've talked about, for example, posted workers, how they're even being asked at internal borders in Europe. So that's, you know, really difficult. So there's these 6 things. So what does it mean for global mobility? And I think it really means this. All assignments have to be really well thought out. You really need to calculate risk and reward. And what we're seeing is sort of quite a tendency to tilt towards long-term assignments, which was totally against the previous trend of short-term assignments, because a one-day trip could actually become a 1-month adventure. And, you know, we've seen in the UK how suddenly, by saying everyone from Spain has to quarantine for 14 days, I mean, that is really, you know, quite inconvenient and adds on quite a lot of time. So if you are making a one-day business trip, that will be a really bad unintended consequence. And I think on compliance, what it means for global mobility is that you really need to think not just about your own compliance, but compliance of your supply chain. And if you have on-site presence there, you know, what you're doing there. And then for this whole issue about travel bubbles and regulations, you've got to look at the quickest way for speed of landing. And for the health and safety, you've got to have this extra added care for your employees. And the very last point, which is a real top tip, is the thing that you need to tell every single assignee or traveler is that the most important requirement is a pen. Because I've heard so many stories about people who arrive at destinations and because of COVID-19, no one will lend them a pen to fill in a paper form. So you must travel with a pen.
Julia's top tip, buy yourself a biro.
Exactly.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you so much, Julia. A pleasure, as always, hearing your words of wisdom. I know everybody out there appreciates it. We had lots of really positive comments. I'm now going to bring Marco on the stage. And let's talk about him and the expat experience. So let's see if we can bring Marco, and I'll just move you back for a moment, Julia. Marco, hi, and welcome to the View from the Top.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here.
Okay, so let's start. Tell me a bit about yourself and a bit about Adecco for people who don't know the company.
Yeah, well, Adecco is a market leader is based in Switzerland. We are of course in the total talent solution, HR solution and services. It's a 25 billion plus company, 60 plus country presence. And in terms of India, because I am of course responsible of India operations. It's a 900 to 1,000 people company, 30 plus location. We are from Kashmir to the outmost south tip of India, and of course we are delivering solution and services more or less the same as we do across the globe.
Okay, and Marco, you said to me earlier when we had our green room discussion that you would be pretty sort of honest and open and transparent about your experiences in mobility for good and bad. And I'm going to keep you to that, and I'm sure our audience will do too. So out there in the audience, if you've got questions for Mark about what it's like to be an expat CEO, then shoot them through. But we're going to have a good old discussion. But Marco, just in terms of yourself, tell me, in terms of your career, how many locations have you worked in, and tell me a bit about your family as well, because presumably they've moved around the world with you too.
Yeah. Well, I moved in quite some, I would say in almost all continents with different roles, in different parts of, in different moments of my career. The latest one was India, where it's my actually second stint. I was before in Chennai and now in Bangalore. And I work in the Netherlands, in the US, in Latin America, and of course in Italy. It's my home country. So I moved left and right quite a lot. I'm married with a Dutch woman, and we have two wonderful sons, Jonah and Ruud, of 5 and 11. And of course, it's as we were saying before, one of the success to me of any engagement and every assignment, at least for myself, is moving with the family. We always say we don't leave behind home. We call home all the time where we are in that moment. And this is thanks also because we all move together.
Your kids, I guess, scarcely know Italy. Yeah.
Unfortunately, for friends and some parts of the family, yes. But yeah, we go often. It's our country of choice for vacation, for example. But they one was born in Milan actually, and one in the Netherlands. But we like to keep it international and open for them. I think it's a nice ways to start and to grow at that age, understand differences and adapt to it.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm seeing some of the comments coming up here. Dutch women, Jacqueline Van Haften from Amsterdam, I should say, puts in. What else we had? Home is where the family is.
Yeah, bingo.
Yeah, exactly. So we're getting some comments coming in there, but let's just move on a bit. I mean, we've talked a bit about your expat experience, and you've been on different sort of packages over the years. How have you seen mobility evolve from when you first moved? I don't know when you did your first international move, and how has it sort of developed over the years, this whole moving process?
Yeah, I would say this is, again, I would just want to talk about my experience. I'm far away from generalizing. But my experience has been that from the first one to the last one, not much has changed in terms of experience that we have as a family and then me as a professional moving. So I still see massive opportunities to improve in this sector and to talk about an experience for the family and and not a transactional relationship in moving a professional of a company from point A to B. So I haven't seen much of change. I've experienced great preparations. I always say that the expat starts from home. You have a pre-assignment that is extremely important. One of the best things I did in my first time I went to India was a wonderful course of 3 days in Amsterdam at the Tropen Institute that prepared me and my family exceptionally well to weather the cultural differences, both on a family and also for me as a professional. And
so
then,
do you think all employees, all people who are moving should have cultural training? Is that a big issue?
Yeah, to me should be unless you move from one state to the other in the US, or but even within Europe, I would say an Italian moving to the Netherlands or a Swedish moving to Spain. We all know that we are extremely different, luckily in Europe. So I think it's a prerequisite 100% of the time. Every time I did it, it helped dramatically. The performance, to perform day one, to minimize mistakes, because of course when you move in a new country, you make a lot of mistakes. So to minimize that and to make sure that the family feels extremely well and understand the differences. Yeah. It's
what are the lessons you've learned that you would pass on to somebody doing an assignment for the first time? What are the lessons you've learned, the mistakes, the pitfalls that maybe people should avoid?
Yeah, well, mistake is to think that either a book or a film or a vacation make you understand what it means to live in a place and to live in full. So this is sometimes the mistake that you might make, thinking that you understand the culture, understand the religion, understand the practices of places. This is something that is avoidable with a bit of again preparation and probably a mindset, an open and curious mindset. Another one,
Sorry, go for it. Sorry.
No, and that I keep on seeing actually is the once you are in the role and so the pre-assignment is finished, you are in the role. There is a continuous, I would say, help needed. A continuous help in understanding where you are and understand basically the culture of the place. So this is sometimes it's something that is lacking. Once you're in the company, it's almost expected that you have understood, and then the company will take care, of the transactional aspect of it. No, so I think there is a massive improvement that we can make. Not to end with one of the most surprising for me events is when I moved back to Europe, which was a complete, so what the textbook called a reverse cultural shock. I really experienced it.
That's from Chennai to Amsterdam, was it?
From Chennai back to Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's about in this case, it was for me a developing countries going back into a more organized country. But it's something that you need help, you and your family. You almost forget if you understand where you are and you live in full the experience of the new country. When you go back, it's quite a shock. So there is a strong need for let's say a rehabilitation when you come back from an expat assignment. I think a lot of companies lose a lot of talent for that.
We're getting a lot of questions come in. Let me just ask some of the questions that we've got. Here's a question from Gusharan, Marco. How did you acclimatize to the Indian way of working? The concept of what we call organized chaos could be a shock initially.
Yeah, I don't know how many Italians are watching this, but I will say that in Italy you grew up with an organized chaos. It's a country that lacks a process orientation. We are a very creative country. We go by the moment. So when you grew up and you manage and you study in such a country, you are prepared for something that goes wrong. But I must say that in India, and that's what me and my family loves, you are a couple of notch higher, so you can expect, but you're going to be surprised, luckily, because it's a very interesting country. So you adapt by thinking that you are always learning, by respecting, by going with your own independence of thinking. There's a lot of cliches, a lot of taboos, a lot of this unproven and factless experiences or events going around. So I think independence of thinking is critical, and then listen to people and be open to understand that even if a culture that is completely different, like India, has a lot to teach to us and has a lot to be understood, profoundly understood.
Okay, and other questions that have coming in. Here's one from Henri. From an assignee point of view, what would you consider a necessary change in the way you experience mobility? In other words, if you had a magic wand, you could change something the way that you're enjoying your experience mobility. What would you like to change?
Yeah, stop. That's an easy one, because I stop being transactional. So a relocation cannot be transactional, cannot be a checklist, and it cannot be that the checklist is actioned for 80% by the person moving. So I think this is at times the experience where I think there is a massive opportunity. If it becomes more customized, it becomes more of a human experience, a family experience. There is an opportunity to do much better, I think.
That's a huge issue, because I've worked in the mobility industry for, well, probably people say for too long, but at least 1,000 years. And people, ever since I started, people said, how can we get mobility to the top table? How can we stop being transactional and start being strategic? Now, I think this is probably the first time we've actually got a CEO on the show. And from a CEO's perspective, would you like mobility to be more strategic? Or do you want us to stay transactional? And if you want us to be strategic, how can we do it? Help us to help us.
Yes. No, I would. For sure, it's an opportunity. There should be, and there is, I imagine, a lot of knowledge, a lot of competence in this sector. No, so becoming more strategic means being able to solution. So not to give just a service. You have a menu of services, and you give a service. You want this. This is the service. You want that. So, but to come up with much more solution orientation, and make sure that the competence and what the company or the sector have learned, that flows towards companies and towards experts. I think this is critical. There is a huge need for a much more strategic approach in this sector, exactly to take away the transactional aspect of it. It's not about finding a house, or it's not about giving you a book on understanding Dutch people. No, for example, it's much more than that, much more. And that is a conversation that starts with a corporate. Corporate head offices are places where those decisions should be taken. There should be a place there for strategic conversations.
And the other thing we hear sometimes is that whilst we always say that mobility is about enhancing your career, and and we want the best people to go on assignment, they learn from it. Other people say that actually mobility all too often is not good for your career, because when you come back, you're forgotten and you lose your place in the hierarchy, and actually, becoming mobile is actually detrimental from a career point of view, although it should be not. It should be the other way around. Have you ever experienced that? And how do you think we can do that to ensure within an organization that going on assignment doesn't mean you're forgotten?
Yeah.
And going up. And have you ever had a bad experience on repatriation?
Yeah. So it is a very difficult question, because it's both, actually, because it depends how far you are from home, of course, from the home meaning from the headquarters. If you are far away, the opportunity to be close to the center, to the decisions, to make sure that the perception of the headquarters is correct, of the country, of the performance, of a lot of things, of the needs for investments. It's extremely difficult to represent. The more I think the country is developing and far away, I think it's definitely a way, if played well and if lived in full, it's a way to advance career within the company, or across the career ambition the person has, because I think it's such an enriching experience, both personally and for your career, I think there's no other experience that gives you so much in terms of acquiring new methodologies, new ways of work, understanding what people say and what they want to say, how to manage in different cultures. So it's massively enriching. There needs to be an effort of headquarters to understand this and manage expat in this way. At times, it's not always the same, and I think it's understood, because it's quite an effort financially and materially for companies. So, but it is something to definitely watch, because it's an opportunity.
I'd like to move the conversation on a bit. I'm just going to bring Michelle onto the stage, our researcher, and indeed, oh, there you are. We didn't have you for a second there, Michelle. And now I know, Michelle, you've done, as ever, a bit of polling, and one of the issues I want to get into this debate with Marco, as I remember, was about what do assignees miss most from home. And do you want to talk us through that? Let's not talk about the answer yet, but just talk a little bit about the research that you did.
Yeah. So we asked our wonderful audience what they thought assignees missed most about home when going on assignment. And the options we threw out there were food, family, friends, and entertainment, meaning TV, movies, things like that.
Okay, so let's just ask Marco before we reveal the answers. Marco, what do you miss most from home? I suppose in your case, I'm not even sure where home is, whether it's the Netherlands or Italy. But what do you miss most from home? Food, family, friends, or entertainment?
Yeah, that's another good question. As I was thinking, I would almost say nothing, because nowadays so food, despite being Italian and whatever cliche we might have, Italian food now and good food is almost everywhere. So it's not definitely not. Family, it's a precondition for me to move in every assignment that they come with me. So it's a decision we take together. Entertainment, definitely not. Entertainment is one of the good things of being an expat. And I think, if I really have to choose, probably friends. If at times I look back and I say, I have, the amount of real friends that you have is shrinking, because you have much less opportunities to see them. Of course, there's new technology. You see them, you talk to them, but friends is it's an aspect that is difficult. You tend to have a lot of friends locally, but they become friends for the expat assignment almost. Then it's difficult to follow through. So friends.
Okay, and in fact, I see Bindu's put up, and Bangalore is a foodie's paradise.
Yeah, true.
So Michelle, tell us the results.
Sure. So the number one answer was family at 58%, followed by friends at 23%, food at 19%, and entertainment was 0. And I suspect it's because, the way Netflix and all these other streaming opportunities are available across the globe. So yeah, family was leading the pack at 58%. But Marco, I'm with you. While I haven't been on assignment, I would imagine the friends piece would be the toughest.
Yeah, it is very tough. Yeah.
And I suspect you would miss family a lot more if you hadn't taken them with you. So you see, there's often other family members, extended family. But let's just talk about this, and we're getting questions coming in. So we'll come back to you in a bit, Michelle. So I'm just going to move you backstage again. We'll come back to you, and I want to talk about. Let me just get rid of that. About moving with a family. And in fact, Susan Ginsberg put a question up here. She said, would like to hear from Marco on supporting the family, accompanying spouses, partners, children's schools, childcare, etc. Important to address when embarking on a move and when working remotely. So tell us what it's like from your perspective. You've moved with your wife. You've also moved with your kids. And in some cases, Jimmy kid and then kids, because one of your kids was born whilst you're on assignment. I think that's right. So what's it like? Yeah, what's it like moving with a family, and how important is it? I mean, we actually talked about this last week on one of the shows. We talked about the partner experience, but tell us a bit from your perspective about moving with a family.
Yeah, well, it's extremely important. Again, personally, I wouldn't move without. There are maybe short, very very short assignments which are more business trips. When it's a real move, family, it's fundamental. How it is with moving with kids, I think egoistically it's fantastic because they are always with us. We think as adults that we are exposing them to a great amount of experiences. We are conscious the fact that at times we are also imposing them the fact of that it's difficult to start and grow friendships at this age. They are still young, so we still think and perceive that we are not killing their friends' life. But it is.
How are your kids?
11 and the other 5.
11 and 5. Okay, so still fairly young. Yeah.
Yes, they are fairly young, and it's. I think they are very happy. They are, as we speak, almost every morning they ask me, Papa, when are we going back to India? No. So it is. They are part of. it. We feel they understand the culture very well. They understand differences, the diversities. So it becomes automatic. Which is fascinating for me that I didn't have, for example, this when I was at that age. To see how ingrained it is. It's not even a conversation anymore. It's automatic for them to be open to all this. So my experience is nothing but great, wonderful to move with them. In terms of, if I look at the sector, and there is a massive opportunity also here. I think it's the spouse, making sure that the spouse or the husband that is following the working woman, it's necessary to have much more help. Majority of the time where we got family friends or my wife was engaged, it was through school. Through school, and then that's a pretty common thing. But I think there is an opportunity to create much more programs and activities for spouses. It's almost like going in a reputed MBA in the US, where you have quite some activities for spouses or for the significant other coming. I think there is a massive opportunity here too. It is a time difficult because most of the time the person following had to leave work, had to stop the career, and has to understand inside out the culture, because that person will deal with the everyday. So I think there is an opportunity there to do more.
Yeah. These kids that go that live on assignment when they're
Yeah.
growing up, sometimes they just become stronger, different in many ways than people who live sort of more, cloistered lives. And I mean, the jargon that we use, they call them third culture kids. Because they don't have the culture of the country in which they're living, and they don't have the culture of the country where they come from. They've got their own sort of hybrid culture. And I mean, the most famous and most successful ever, I think, third culture kid was Barack Obama.
Yeah.
As a child was in, I think he was in, I can't remember what it was, Indonesia, I think his parents were. Yeah. But, so I think there's a lot. So, I mean, and what you're saying is your kids are growing up with a very unique take on the world.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, definitely very unique. So this is enriching to see that. And it's enriching to see how they switch languages, already, because we are a very specific family, because, my wife speaks Dutch, we speak together English, and there is some Italian going with my kids, and they study in English. So, it's there is a concern that we have there, that at times we don't understand what is their mother tongue, that they speak much better Dutch as for now, because of course I am a bit less with them. But at times, we are worried to say, first of all, where is home? And we decided that home is where we are in that moment. But what is their main language, and how can we make sure that we grow them with a piece transfer and piece of our culture each? So that part is a continuous work. We feel I don't think we cracked it yet, because if I hear my older son, he can put 3 or 4 different languages in the same sentence, so it's so he will put a sentence with one word in Italian, which probably comes much easier, or it sounds better to him, another one in Dutch, another one in English. So it's nice, but it's worrisome.
He understands it, but nobody else might.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, I mean, you said you were going to be pretty honest and transparent with us. I mean, you've moved with a family, you've moved countless times. What has the relocation industry done that's been really bad? Where have you ever felt let down in terms of when you've been moved, either you or your family, and things haven't gone well on a move?
Well, I would, if I think about, I mean, the first thing that comes into my mind, for example, is finding a house, finding an apartment. Majority. That's why lately I, as we were saying before, I tend to want to do it myself. But finding a house at times is you feel an expat. You feel that the choice is not there, and that a very specific catalog of houses is always the same. That you're not understood in what you want. You might have filled out 10 forms, but then what you've shown is not exactly what you're looking for. So at time a transactional part of finding a house becomes extremely difficult, and this is one of the number one priority we have when we move, because we want to make sure that the family is and myself also, we are very much in the right place. Something else very important, as we talked before, for example, is the pre-understanding. Pre-understanding, it's not a couple of pages, A4s with very brief, superficial understanding of the culture. If you go in India, people are indirect. This is this doesn't help. In the many places they are indirect. But what does this mean? What is the acceptable behavior? What is it? So these two come very, very clearly in my mind. Yeah.
Okay. And somebody actually asked him, one of the questions we often talk about is the whole thing about how you can make mobility digital. And actually somebody asked the question on LinkedIn, how do you like people to communicate with you? I mean, do you like phone calls, meeting people in person, WhatsApp? Do you want to swipe left and right to get information? Do you want emails? Do you want to be able to do things whenever you want, or do you want to wait till someone's available and have the personal touch? I mean, where are you on that scale of old-fashioned versus digital?
Yeah, well, it depends on the moment. I am very much a WhatsApp person, so but this is again transactional. I'm very much a person of. I'm also in a sector that I love, which is deals with people. So I am very much a in-person person. So I love to be able to hear and to explain myself by looking at the person. And most of the time, the person is of the culture where you're moving on. So there are unspoken things. There is a body language. So I am much more for personal. But of course, when it's transactional, WhatsApp to me, it's changed my world. It's very easy. It's very quick. But not to forget at all the personal component for me, very important.
So it's both. Whilst we're on this sort of area of how mobility is changing, there's been one subject that I think caused more debate than anything when we touched it on the show last week. And I said I'd come back, so I'd like to get your views on it. And I'm going to bring Michelle in too. And that's the question of lump sum. Let me just bring Michelle in. Now, I know, Michelle, you've done some research. And in our agreement, I said we're doing it in a different order, so I apologize, Michelle, but we're going to touch on lump sum research now, if I may. And just for the avoidance of doubt, and maybe discuss it with you, what we mean by lump sum, because I appreciate it's a bit of a jargon term within the mobility industry, is that historically, when people went on assignment or moved, they were given a fixed suite of moving benefits, if you want. So they got intercultural training, they got home search, they got so much allowance for shipping, they got so much allowance for disturbance, they got so much for temporary nights for temporary accommodation. Whereas these days there's been a bit of a trend to say that's all rather paternalistic. Let's just give people a lump sum of money and they can work out what they want to spend their money on. And as I've seen it, there's two schools of thought. One school of thought says lump sum is the future. It's very simple. People are grown up. They can manage their own cash the same way you get cafeteria benefits in the standard benefits. You can get the sort of effectively cafeteria approach in an expat package. The other school of thought says no. The employer's got a duty of care. We don't want employers just going to any old provider, being sort of ripped off or buying. But if we're giving them a benefit, then it's because we want them to have that benefit. We don't want them to have a choice. And again, on the other hand, the lump sum, people say, well, actually, it's cheaper if you don't provide everybody every benefit and you let them choose. So where are you? I mean, there you are. You're sitting there as a senior CEO, and we'll come on to our poll in a moment. But from your perspective, what would you like to see? Would you like to see a flexible package where you can spend the cash as you want, or would you prefer to see a fixed package where and your people know exactly what they get? Yeah.
Again, it's a very good question. I think through time and through assignments, I grew towards the lump sum. But this is mainly because because of my experiences. So I saw and experienced the fact that if I do it myself, I have an impression that I create my own experience. So it doesn't want to be anything general. But I would tend to think, for example, if it's a pre-course before going, and it can be cultural, it can be whatever pre-course we can think of. Probably it's better that the company takes care, because a company would probably want to define the content with the deliverer, and you want to have it a bit standardized based on geographies. If it's about the rest, finding a school, it's about finding the housing and all that. I think the lump sum works better, and this at time is also driven by the fact that you have an impression at times that it's the search for the school or especially for the house, for example, it's something that it doesn't have any. Not a lot, let's say, of time spent by the relocators, in my experience. And given our importance to find the right place, and at times it comes at a much higher price than when you do it directly. So those items made me lean much more towards the lump sum.
Yeah. Okay, let's Michelle, if we go then to you, I know we did a poll on it, but can you just tell me, where we came out on that?
Sure. So the options we gave were on lump sums were it's a great idea, it's the future, okay for junior employees, or I don't like them at all. And for those of you who were on the view from the top last week, this was a very heated discussion, which will continue. And I guess sort of in line with the theme from last week, 41% of people said they don't like them at all. 33% thought it was okay for junior employees, and 26% thought it is a great idea. It's the future.
Okay, well, so I find your views very, very, very interesting there, because the poll seemed to be saying it's okay, but mainly for junior employees, or they don't like them. Whereas actually, I think what I was hearing from you was even for senior employees, or at least one particular senior employee, i.e. you, actually you quite like lump sum. I mean, this will be controversial. In fact, I can see this. I can see the LinkedIn comments lighting up, but sadly, I hate to disappoint people in LinkedIn. We're not going to spend too much more time on that because we've got other matters to discuss, but we will keep coming back to it. I think this is such a big issue. But thank you for that. What I want to do, I'll just so I say goodbye to Michelle again, and I just want to talk about other things that happen, and I just want to go completely the other end of the scale and talk about COVID-19, because you were on assignment when COVID started hitting. And one of the questions people have asked me is, well, did people get back? Are there people still out there? When are they going to go back? So you were in Bangalore, but you're now in Amsterdam. So tell me what happened. Tell me your COVID experience there.
So COVID experience. We were, in India till almost mid of March. So the big wave in my country, in Italy, in Europe had already started. In Asia was, what we thought was the first wave was going down. India was very, very low in terms of cases, but there were, discussions that the country would have shut down. So we moved very early on the company to work from home, 100%. So at the beginning of March, we were all working from home. At that point, we took a decision with the family to move to Singapore. We wanted to, because our Asia Pacific platform is in Singapore. We moved there because of the fact that the timing is more or less the same, and it would have been anyway easy to manage the company from home because we were working all from home. Singapore also, after 2 weeks we were there, went on into a circuit breaker. And we are European, so it's Singapore. You cannot stay too long. Also, so after a couple of months, we decided to come much more towards Europe. And actually, the moment you exited India, at that point, your visa would be ceasing to exist, and international flights would stop. So now we are back in the Netherlands. Of course, we cannot apply yet for a visa. I'm waiting for the right moment to be able to come back. I think the family will stay a bit more, because we want to be sure. I personally want to be sure to move back, safely, and actually we are all still working from home. I don't plan to move the organization, not even in the first phase, to work from the office, because it's unnecessary. It's an unnecessary risk. So this is how we ended up in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I mean, that brings us into this whole question of the future from work, and I mean, Adecco, you employ or you're having contractors. I mean, you have hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and in terms of people who sort of somehow touch Adecco, we're talking millions of people. What's your view on the future from work? I mean, are we all going to be working from home long term? Are offices a thing of the past? We did actually do a quick poll on this, but let me just I'll bring Michelle in. Actually, we did do a poll on working from home. Do you want to quickly tell us about the poll?
Yeah, we sure did. As most of us are working from home these days, we asked the question: in an ideal world, how many days per week would you like to work from home? 5 days a week, 4 days a week at home, 1 day in the office, half at home, half in the office, or mainly in the office. Working. I hate working from home. So those were the 4 options: 5 days, 4 days, half and half, or mainly in the office. Yeah. And I guess I would preclude this by just saying this is post-COVID.
Yeah.
Environment.
Yeah. Well, if I look at this, it depends. For me, it depends a lot on what we decide for the company, for all our 900,000 employees. I am a person who loves who manage by walking around. You know, we have a big head office, 350 people in Bengalaru. So this is something that I'm able to keep in contact, in touch with all levels of the organization. So for me, I'm an old style person who likes the contact and see the operation, clients, businesses, very, very close. So, but of course, this experience is as teaching us, and myself also, the fact that actually you can maintain contact anyway, and we can see it more in a much more balanced way. Of course, this has been quite a blow for us, what has happened. And so I hope, and at least myself, I'm looking at nature differently. I'm looking at the working relationship, the family relationship very, very differently. So I discovered that I can spend wonderful time from morning to evening, much more with my kids, for example, something that I would have not. And in terms of work, what we expect for sure a move towards a much more digital work. So, but this is nothing new. We have identified a mega trend a few years back of freelancing. And the company, the group has invested a lot. So we think that will accelerate. Again, this is not rocket science, but the more and more need of working from home and working independently, and less importance of the physical will accelerate this mega trend, which was already in place. We think it's going to be much more, even more prevalent. And so this is mainly what we expect.
Okay, and Michelle, do you just want to tell us what the answers were?
Of course. 50% of respondents said half at home, half in the office. 24% said 4 days at home, 1 day in the office. 18% said 5 days a week at home. And just 8% said mainly in the office.
Yeah.
Okay, and and somebody raised the question, actually, it was Jacqueline Van Haften, who said, why didn't you ask how many days do you need to work in the office? And I think maybe that's going to be the company perspective as well. I mean, there's what we as employees want, how many days do we want to? And as you can see, the vast majority of people do not want to be mainly in the office. I appreciate there will be some industries where people have to be in at their workplace. But in our industry, in particular in HR, you probably don't have to be that much. And indeed, most people, 92% said that they wanted to be at least half the time at home.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a massive thing. But the other side of the question, as Jacqueline rightly puts out, is from the company's perspective, how many days do actually people need to be in the office, and what's that going to mean for this whole question of the future for work? I mean, do you think that's going to change over the next, say, if we go out 5 years, do you think that will change big time?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it will change, because again, it made us stop and think. I believe that a lot of things that has happened in the past. I mean, we were just running and try to run faster, and then again trying to run even faster than before. So this stop, and I hope and go, and I'm actually pretty sure and go. It makes us think a lot. So it's a very fair question. How many people? If I think about my company, how many people have to be at work? Well, it's very close to zero. People have to be close to clients. You can be close to clients, and we all have to be close to clients, digitally. So the must and have to, I think, has gone down dramatically, and I think this will remain like this.
A question's been asked by Mark O'Reilly, which I'll take in. I mean, he asked a question. We also need to consider the productivity question. Has productivity increased or decreased since working began?
Yeah.
I mean, what's your experience within your company? I mean, you must be looking at it, not just with your own company, but with your clients as well. Do you think productivity has increased or decreased or indeed stayed the same since everybody changed to work from home?
Yeah, well, if I look at, the entire company, productivity decreased, but this is because it goes with the decrease of business. We are in a sector where a lot of work was not available. The clients and candidates also, candidates could not go out to work, and clients didn't need them much. So the productivity, of course, if I look at it in that way, went down substantially. What we hear, and because we have a quarterly survey and we have a weekly call with the organization, we want to be extremely close to our people. And what we hear back and what we saw in the internal survey is that actually the amount of work has increased. So the productivity on the amount of work has been increasing, and this is just an effect of the fact that if I see it also myself, it's never finished, because you don't have the routine of going out of the house, take your car or the bicycle or whatever you use to go to work, and then finish at a certain point and come back. It seems that for a lot of our people, and myself also, it's pretty fine to have a video call on a specific presentation at 9 o'clock in the evening, because it's doable anyway. It's accepted that you're going to show up with a t-shirt. It's even if you are eating half a sandwich during the call, no one would say anything. So I think we have it's something that I'm thinking a lot on, how we are able to make sure that people not that we force them, but we make sure that they are able to balance their life. We don't, of course, want to intrude and make sure that we decide for them, but to try to advise and decide together what is the best routine you can have in order to be able to maintain productivity, but at a certain point, stop. This has a lot of ramification, one of which is, for example, diversity, the stress that the diversity movement and efforts that every CEO, at least myself, is doing to become a much more diverse company is very much impacted by this. Now, women have it even more difficult during this pandemic.
We're pretty much out of time, but actually, here's wrong one. Sorry. Here's a last question. I'll just throw out from Daniel Bolger. You talked earlier about managing by walking around. Have you adapted your managing by walking around in the era of Zoom meetings? Do you manage by zooming around?
Yeah, I manage by zooming around. Yes. This is a question for my leadership team and for my all my organization, my recruiters. It is. I have to adapt. Of course, I'm a person that is capable of understanding. That the times has changed, and then I need to adapt. So I'm passing a lot of time with clients and colleagues on Teams. We use Teams internally, not Zoom. But I'm missing badly, and this I say since we are the four of us. I'll tell you that I miss badly the walking around, the contact, because in Zoom you can read, but not a lot. You hear. You don't read the body language. You don't read what exactly that person is not saying or is trying to say. So I'm adapting, but I don't like it.
I'm going to bring Julia back. Julia, when we were talking earlier about families and the importance of the family in making an assignment a success, and I know you're on the board of the Permits Foundation. Maybe just say a little bit about that and what they do for people who don't know the Permits Foundation.
Yeah, so the Permits Foundation lobbies around the world for governments to give dependents the right to work, because all the research shows that it's really important that dependents are able to move, and also if they want to take some work, and in some countries they can't even do charity work if they want to. But it is quite interesting because we've had some meetings in Asia Pac, and there are some opportunities, particularly with the Singapore government and the Chinese government, to actually look at pushing on policies to actually increase the ability of dependents to work. And you'd think that that was really counterproductive, you know, with everything else we've talked about, you know, harsh immigration policies. But I think governments see that, you know, in the competition for talent, that is a really, really important thing. And I think it sort of complements a lot, Marco, on what you're saying about the importance of the family and, you know, and for everyone to feel happy and at home where they go.
Yeah, I agree.
We are, in fact, we've sort of slightly run over. I just want to thank everybody on the call, everybody in LinkedIn world. Just remind everybody, we are back tomorrow with Beniva Bikes talking about the impact of fintech on global mobility. It's the same time as we started today, but tomorrow, i.e. 4 p.m. UK, 11 a.m. Eastern, and whatever else it is, wherever else in the world you are, but you'll find us. And then we're back the following week with The View from the Top with Alex Garida and Molly McGregor. But all that really remains is for me to thank all the audience in LinkedIn world, to thank Michelle and Julia as ever, and with a great big thank you to you, Marco. You've been absolute support. You've told it as it is, and I think probably for one of the first times we've actually heard the perspective of our ultimate client, and whether we're a service provider or corporate, we're all in partnership together, moving someone like you and millions of others like you around the world. So Marco, many thanks for taking part, and thank you everybody, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you.